everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the order of operations. So with our order, we have 4 steps that we want to take, and we have to make sure that these are in order. Our first step is to do all calculations within grouping symbols. Grouping symbols can be things like parentheses, brackets, braces, radical symbols, even fractional parts where we have a numerator and denominator separated, and absolute value symbols. Step 2 is to evaluate all exponential expressions, exponents, radicals, or roots. Step 3, do all multiplication and divisions in order, and this is so important. The order has to be from left to right, not multiplication first, not division first, whatever is first from the left side. And then step 4, do all additions and subtractions in order from left to right. So same kind of thing as on the multiplication and division. So we're going to look at our first 2 examples. We have 34 times 56 minus 17. So when we look at this first example, we don't see any grouping symbols. We don't see any exponents. So we're going to move on to that step 3. I do see multiplication, so I want to go ahead and do that negative 34 times 56, which when we multiply those two will be negative 1,904. We're going to bring down that minus 17. Since that's the last operation that we had, we're going to add these 2 negatives together, and we're going to get negative 1921, or negative 1,921. And that's going to be our answer. So that one was nice. Okay, let's look at example 2. This time it's going to get a little bit more, just going to be more operations here. So on example 2, same thing. We want to remember our first step. There are no grouping symbols, even though we have parentheses. Those are to separate our division sign from our integer sign. So not grouping. Second step, exponents. We don't see any here, so we're going to move on to step 3, our multiplication and division from left to right. So I see my first division is right here with 25 divided by negative 5, and 25 divided by negative 5 is going to be a negative 5. Then we have plus 50 divided by negative 2. So again, we have an addition and a division. We have to make sure we've cleared all multiplication and divisions before we do that addition. So I'm going to go ahead and divide positive 50 divided by negative 2, which we know is going to be a negative 25. So we have negative 5 plus negative 25. I'll go ahead and write those parentheses around there just to keep everything nice and neat. So if we look at this, negative 5 plus negative 25 is going to be negative 30. And we're done. See? Nice, simple order of operations. All right, let's look at our next 2 examples. These guys gonna be a little monstrous. So, example 3. Yikes, there's a lot of operations here, but we can manage. We know what to do. We have the order. So, our first step was to do all calculations within grouping symbols. We notice that we have our parentheses right here, so we're gonna go ahead and do every operation that we can in there first. We have an addition and a multiplication. Since we want to continue with the weight system of this, we want to make sure that we do this multiplication first. So 23 times 2 is going to be 46. So in our parentheses, we now have 37 plus 46. I'm going to go ahead and bring everything else down just because I like to rewrite everything all the time. Okay, then if we look, we have inside of our parentheses 37 plus 46, and 37 plus 46 is going to be 83. So again, I'm going to let me actually write that 83 first, and then I'll bring everything else down. Okay, now that we've finished with our grouping symbols, our second step was to evaluate all exponential expressions. So we have an exponent right here. This is negative 2 to the 4th power. So what this means is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is going to be 16. So this is really negative 16 plus 51 times 4 minus 83. Okay? So now that we've done our exponent, we're on to our third step in our order, multiplying and dividing from left to right. So I only see one multiplication here, 51 times 4. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply those two, and I'm going to get a positive 204. Okay. Now, if we look at this, our last step is addition and subtraction from left to right. So if we notice, our very first operation on the left side is going to be this addition. So negative 16 plus 204 is going to be a positive 188 minus 83. And now we're down to our very last step. 188 minus 3 is going to equal 105. And that is our answer. So before we move on to our last example, I did want to make note that as we're working our order of operations, what we should notice as we move each line down, that our expression is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what we want. That's the goal for order of operations. We would want to get a smaller equation, that way or expression, so that way we can eventually get the simplified answer. All right, now are you ready for example 4? Okay, here it's a big one, this one. All right. So do not be alarmed. We have the 4 steps that we need to follow for our order of operations, so we're going to do those now. Step 1 was to do all calculations within grouping symbols. And remember, grouping symbols did include fraction form or numerator denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of maybe use my great little bunny post-it over here and cover this denominator up just so I can work with that numerator first. So we have negative 64 divided by negative 16 divided by negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and work from left to right, since there's no exponents, with my division. Negative 64 divided by negative 16 is going to be a positive 4 divided by a negative 2. Okay, so that's all going to be in my numerator. If we continue to look at this problem, what we notice is I have my last division here. A positive 4 divided by a negative 2 is going to give us a numerator of negative 2. And there's my fraction bar. So we're completely done with our numerator. Wasn't that difficult once we covered up that denominator? So now, let's look at that denominator. Oh, this is the first time we're encountering double exponents here. Totally fine. Again, we have to evaluate all of our exponents. So our first one here, 2 to the 3rd power, means 2 times 2 times 2. And 2 times 2 times 2 is going to be 8. So this is 8 minus 3 to the 2nd power. We have our second exponent, which is 3 to the 2nd power, which means 3 times 3. And 3 times 3 is 9. So lastly, we have 8 minus 9 in our denominator. And 8 minus 9 is going to be a negative 1. So I have negative 2 divided by negative 1. We remember, hopefully, from our integer division that when we have 2 negatives, it cancels out, or they cancel out, and becomes a positive. So this is just going to be a positive 2. Look at all that work just for a positive 2. Isn't that crazy? Okay, so now it's your turn. I have 5 little guys for you to try right here. So why don't you take a moment to write those down, pause and solve, and let's see how you did. All right, well, here's the answers. How do you do on this? If you made any mistakes, please, please, please make sure you go back and check the order. Order of operations is so important. If we accidentally move from one step to another, we've done the problem wrong. So make sure you go ahead and check those.